Pucks with Haggs
is brought to you by Prize Picks and the Game Time app.
Welcome to another edition of the Pucks with Haggs podcast, powered by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. This is the 159th episode of the Pucks with Haggs podcast. Thank you, as always, for tuning in and listening. With me, a longtime friend and colleague, Mick Colageo. Mick, please tell everybody where they can find your work, my friend.
I blog Bruins games live on RinkWrap, mc.com. RinkWrap blog is linked to X and Facebook. I write seasonal issues of the hockey news, so we're actually presently working on the Future Watch, the prospects issue.
Oh boy, I bet Bruins fans can't wait to get a load of the Future Watch for the Boston Bruins. Very controversial Future Watch for the Boston Bruins, depending on what your opinion of their draft and development system is. So I'm sure that's going to be awesome, Mick. Thank you. As always, obviously, I'm your host, Joe Haggerty. You can find my work at joehaggerty.substack.com. Subscribe and get yourself a premium membership. Get all of my Bruins and NHL writing sent straight directly to your inbox. I also write 3 times a week for the Boston Sports Journal, so check bostonsportsjournal.com. After every Bruins game, you'll see something posted from me. Let's also thank our sponsors before we get into this episode that's going to include sort of, where the Bruins are right now, their last game. And, we should start talking trade stuff a little bit, so we're going to do that as well. But let's get into the sponsors really quick. Let's thank Prize Picks, our good friends there. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks run your game. Let's also thank our friends at Game Time. This is for any kind of tickets, concert tickets, sports tickets, theater tickets, whatever tickets you can think of. Game Time has them, so check them out. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. But again, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it, Mick?
Game time.
Game time. And I, on a personal note, I got to tell you, I'm streaming stuff now and seeing the Game Time commercials come up and other people doing the what time is it game time thing at the end of the commercial.
Where are the royalties?
Yes. Game Time is taking over, Mick. You are part of a revolution. The Game Time revolution.
They know a good slogan when they hear one.
That's right. Absolutely. All right. So let's get into it. Tough loss, obviously, against the Senators over the weekend. We can talk about that a little bit for sure. And also a 6-3 win over the Sharks on Monday afternoon. MLK matinee at the Garden. This is kind of like according to Hoyle right now, Mick, right? They lose the game in Ottawa. The team that's nipping on their heels, that was a tough loss too, no doubt about it. Blow a lead, lose in the extra session. And, it's a team that's chasing them. It had all the makings and feelings of a playoff game, playoff level desperation from both teams, and they fall short in that game. And that's revealing. And I think they've fallen short a lot of times when they play playoff level good teams, especially good teams that are highly motivated. Like they've not been able to reach that level. So there's a concern there. There's no doubt about it. But they come back on Monday and they have a good win against San Jose where they have to really show it in the third period. I really liked Matt Poitras, the choice to put him at center between Marchand and Coyle. They obviously took a little while to really ramp up and get going, but by the third period, they were the difference. They scored the game-tying goal. They scored the game-winning goal. Poitras set up Coyle for both of them. Marchand played a role in those goals as well. Marchand gets an empty netter later on. But I think I just in that game and in crunch time, really, and when it mattered, I think you saw Matt Poitras doing things at center that Elias Lindholm just was not doing with those two. And that line was not working with Elias Lindholm at center there. And they had tried it for a little while. And it worked a little bit at the beginning. But I think as time wore on, you saw them, they were a problem over the last few weeks. That line with Lindholm there, they were an issue. They were a liability. They were getting scored on a lot. They weren't doing anything offensively. and you see Poitras come in there, and he brings a little bit more transporting the puck through the neutral zone into the offensive zone. Definitely a little more sort of offensive confidence and a little more ability to not only see open teammates, but execute a pass to get the puck to the open teammate in a good spot where they can do something with it. And it makes me want to see a lot more of Matt Poitras there. Like Elias Lindholm has had a really long, really big, really wide chance to show what he can do. And he just has not consistently been able to show that he should be a top 6 guy, that he should be playing 20 minutes a night, that he should get tons of power play time, all the stuff that's coming to him because he got a big contract and because he's had some good seasons in the NHL and he came in with a track record. I think we're at a point where you got to start being a little bold with what you're doing. And you got to give Poitras more rope, more power play time, more chances to see what he can do, see if he can continue to consistently play like he did in helping him win that game on Monday. And that's the only thing, Mick, in my mind, that's going to change the dynamic of what we're seeing right now. If they keep, playing music on the Titanic, it's going to sink in the second half of the season if they keep doing what they were doing in the first half. I think they need to try to do things a little bit differently, and I think that includes putting Poitras in there and seeing what he can do, and maybe he can help energize, impact this team, change the sort of dynamic and the formula that they have offensively. And they're going to need more than that, obviously. They're going to need, I think, a top 6 forward at the trade deadline too. But they need some kind of outside help to change what I think is a storyline that's going to see them fall short of the playoffs if they keep doing what they've been doing. And I think Monday was a good example of them trying something different. It worked, and they got to try it again and keep trying it and hope that Poitras is going to give them maybe what Lowry gave them in the second half and never go back to Providence and, be an NHL guy that's ready for the audition that he's stepping into. Just your thoughts on what you saw from that line and what you saw from the Bruins on Monday against San Jose.
It's as if Marchand went into a room with Poitras and said to him, "Listen, pal, you're here for a reason. You're on this team. You're good. We need you. Let's go." And he played like he belonged. And that was huge, the way because when he's a confident player, he sees the ice really well and he can do things really quickly that it seems to take other players that critical split second that makes a difference on windows closing and good teams adjusting. They needed a comeback at home to beat San Jose.
Yep.
San Jose then went to their next game, took a huge lead, and collapsed in the third period. I think it was the Predators. So they now have 2 games on the road that they had within their grasp, and they let it slip. To 2 teams,
they're a young team though. They're a young, talented team. They're going to do that.
And 2 teams who would have a very disappointing season, who were having trouble scoring, the Bruins and the Predators. And Poitras belongs there. He has now done his time in Providence, not as penance, but as a sentence, but as I used his tool wisely, his opportunity to play a lot of minutes, all situations, develop, relax, see the game at a slightly slower pace, and then come back here, boost it, baby, and here he is injecting some life into that line. Now, can the sample size extend itself? I'd like to think so, because I like how Coyle's playing in the moment. I like how Marchand's built his game gradually, very linear building to Marchand's game this season. He did have that scratch, that situational scratch that came up late in the game this past week that really was kind of, I don't know. I was a little surprised by it all, but it is what it is. I'm glad to see Joe Sacco asserting his authority. And so the Bruins need something. And the only thing about when you mentioned they need another top 6 forward who can score some goals, 100% agreement. That having been said, every time the Bruins ever do anything at the trade deadline, they say, are guys who are having a season that show that they deserve this opportunity.
Right.
We know that this is not that team this year. In fact, I'd be harsh enough to say that in fairness, if this team plays to its identity, they bend and they break.
Yeah.
The Ottawa game was signature.
We've seen enough. Like, I've seen enough to think the ending's not going to be great for this team at the end of the year, based on how hard and difficult they've made for the road for themselves, and based on the way they just respond against good teams. You know, like, they're going to fall short unless they change some things. And I think they're probably actively realizing that too. And like, I hate to bag on Lindholm, but so much of it, I think, centers around him, and he just is not the player that I think anybody thought he was going to be. And he is not making anybody better. And he actively probably making players go in the other direction. Cause he's just not, he's not able to be a number one center. He's not able to complement those guys. It's just, he looks more like you got to try somebody else at number one center, and you got to put him more in like a third line center role and let him sort of, you know, hustle around and back check and throw the body and occasionally make an offensive play. But if you're looking for him to consistently do all that stuff, it's just not there. And the one thing that surprises me about him the most is the defensive zone stuff. Like, I feel like there's been a lot of mistakes slot coverage wise when he was out on the ice, and he's the center, and he's the guy that's supposed to be the help in the middle of the ice in the slot coverage and helping the defenseman in the net front and doing all that stuff. And he's like nowhere to be found. And I think that's happened quite a bit. The first couple times I said, all right, he's getting used to a new system. Maybe he's not used to the way the Bruins do things defensively. Okay. But as it's gone on, you continue to see him just not where he should be or where he's supposed to be in as a center defensively. And you're like, what is going on here? This is not the, you know, Patrice Bergeron type player that I thought the Bruins were getting when they signed him. And these are not the kind of mistakes you would ever see 37 make, especially defensively.
Not at age 18.
No, never. So, you know, I hate to put it all on him, but I think a lot of what's gone on here has been, especially since the coaching change, has been around him, and they need to find a different solution. And I think Poitras, in playing him there, it was time to do it. And I think it's time to feed him more, because, like Mick, not only that game, but I think Poitras has been very noticeable and very good in every game since he's been up. He's been getting chances. He's been creating things. He hasn't had a ton of ice time. He's been doing it in less ice time than Lindholm is getting. That's for sure.
Very smart along the walls.
Yes, I think it's and the danger with him obviously continues to be that he has a hard time eluding big hits, and is he going to be able to remain healthy and you know, be okay and all that stuff if you keep feeding him out there in big minutes. But I think at this point they have to do it and see.
I think they've decided which widget is which, and they're putting them in the places where they think they have the best chance to win. I think right now all decisions are based on we have to make the playoffs, and
because they have to,
and
it should be.
So
it's
they're
a playoff team every night.
They're saying, what is Lindholm? Well, this year Lindholm is this, and that's where they're putting him. And Poitras is our best chance at this, so we're putting him there, and we're going to see what we can do with some elite hockey IQ. Cliche alert. You know, between some guys who play really differently and see the ice differently and need some support. And this guy's got great intuition out there. So it makes sense that they've flipped it the way they have. And they probably talked about it quite a bit before they did. And they, but yeah, I think that's where this is going. And you know, it's, it's either this or bust, because I don't think they have anything else left in the up the sleeve or in the rabbit hat. I don't see anything there. No,
I don't either, and I agree with you. And you know, we'll see. Like, I think he's still young. He's still not, you know, like, he's bigger, thicker, I think, than he was last year, and I think he's a little bit more smarter about it, and able to withstand the sort of like physical challenges of the NHL. It seems like he's a little more ready at 20 than he was last year, a year ago. in addition to having sort of his confidence back. So I think he's in a good place to at least see what he can do for the rest of the season. But I think they have, just based on what they've seen and based on the way the other players have responded when he's playing out there. And like, look, the Bruins are a bad passing team. Like, I can safely say that now after watching a half season of hockey, that they don't see, some of those guys do not see the ice well enough to set up other players with passes in the right spots. They have a hard time executing at times to get the puck to players where they can do something with it. You see them struggle a lot with this. And Poitras is one of those guys that I think sees the ice really well, executes passes, like can do all that stuff, and doesn't have that issue. And I think you need to put him with players that can do something with the puck if you can get it to him. And I think that's finally what they're starting to do here. And we will see. And it is out of desperation, Mick. Like, there's no doubt about it. They have to treat every game like it's do or die for the rest of the year. They've put themselves in a position where they're going to be fighting and scratching and clawing for a playoff spot for the rest of the year. And it's going to be a wild card spot. That's just the way, that's reality after, blowing a bunch of points on the road in the 6-game losing streak, after, blowing a point to Ottawa, like the stuff that they've done, that on top of the hot mess 20-game start they had to the year. They've basically put themselves in a spot where they have to view it this way, and they have to do whatever it takes to win from here on out the rest of the season, the best decisions to get to that point. Turning back to what you said a few minutes ago with the Marchand decision, not playing him in overtime, not playing him in the shootout, losing that game. We're talking about the guy that's got the third most overtime game winners in NHL history behind Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin. It was definitely a choice. There's no doubt about it. What did you think in reaction to it? And then also, just now, the first blush reaction is obviously, he must be dinged up. And it was very clear afterwards by what Joe Sacco said and what Brad Marchand said that there was not an injury. This was about a coach's decision to not put him out there with in a huge spot against a team that's nipping at your heels and past you after that game in the Ottawa Senators. Just what you thought about that whole sequence.
Well, I don't know if Sacco is alluding to a defensive blown assignment by Marchand, but he was talking kind of generally about defensive play and playing both sides of the puck and bearing down and things like that. And I'm kind of thinking here that it may be one of those things that to whom much is given, much is required. And if you're wearing the C on this team, then you better be a good example in all facets of the game. And if you fail, then I can't have any integrity in this locker room if I don't point it out and I don't punish it, sanction it. We're at a point here where it's DEFCON 4 for the Bruins. They absolutely have to do everything possible to win. There can't be any compromises here on how they do that. What do you say about that second Ottawa goal where Brandon Carlo and Nikita Zadorov looked like they were synchronized swimming out there? They were both on Carlo's side of the ice doing a blow-by and swerving in the same direction like they had plotted it out. And clearly, this guy. There's a dog here too, but she's behaving. I just find Zadorov as being so easily lured out of the system.
He is.
And that it may be that I think the best the Bruins can hope for from this summer's off-season moves is that Kastelik stays healthy. Otherwise, no complaints. Lindholm is a much better player next year than he is this year. Yeah. And Zadorov is a much better player next year than he is this year. And they're probably clinging to the hope that Zadorov can make his second year with the Bruins better in the same way that Chara did. Yeah. But I don't see it quite the same. Zadorov's more like, well, A, you're not as good. B, you're wilder. And yes. I don't know if it's in you. I really don't. Right. The Bruins seem to think it is, and that's what their pro scouting told them. They also seem fascinated, that with Lindholm's defensive game and thinking this could be the guy who solidifies our middle the way in some aspects the way Bergeron did.
Yeah.
He is elite in his puck stripping ability, the way he can sneak up on guys and make these little maneuvers that just you can just tell he plays a high-class defensive game.
Yeah.
But as far as his interaction with his teammates offensively and defensively, it has been an absolute disaster this year. And these two guys have hurt them.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be the thing that put them over the top. You needed to get a guy like Lindholm. You didn't necessarily need to make the Zadorov signing, but you thought you could win the Stanley Cup. That's why they did that. So now look at these guys and you say, wow, where are we now? Then it's not all them. It's not even close to all them.
No.
But what was supposed to be the things that took a pretty damn good hockey team and put them in the conversation is now problematic. And that's a tough thing to get past for management.
It definitely is. And there's going to be a lot of questions about that when this season comes to a conclusion one way or another. More on that in a sec. We're going to take a break from the podcast action, though, to talk about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Instead of battling thousands of other players that could be pros or sharks, you simply pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll right in. It's fun, and it's super duper simple. The big game is almost here, and it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last football game of the season with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching the big game. Prize Picks is also giving away a free pick for the big game, where one of the starting quarterbacks will only need to throw 1 yard to win. If you're correct on at least one more stat projection, you win real cash. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Check out the promos tabs to tail any of our super sweat milli winners big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Make your holidays bigger and brighter with Prize Picks, the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. Think Lamar Jackson will get more than 250 passing yards? Will Patrick Mahomes pass more than 1.5 touchdowns? Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this football season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks, and Prize Picks now also offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS for $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. All right. I agree with you, Mick. I think Zadorov is like more of like a wild Colt sort of defenseman than I thought he was, as far as straying away from the net, as far as chasing plays away from the net, as far as not staying near the net front, where his size, strength, and meanness would be the ultimate difference maker, and where it would, really where his strengths would be best served, would be doing that more. But it seems like he's not that kind of a player, and it seems like he is much more of like a roaming out to do things away from the net. And sometimes it works, right? Sometimes he kills plays before they happen, and he can certainly go out there and make a big hit where a guy doesn't expect a defenseman like that to be out in that area. And sometimes he'll surprise forwards and just blast them against the boards because they don't think he's coming, and they're sort of taking it for granted. So there's different things that are like okay about him doing that, but like I just think you're used to seeing a big defenseman like Chara that stayed around the net, knew what he was supposed to do, and understood the defensive role and what suited his game best, and just punished people that got near the net and in the corners and behind the net and all that stuff. And I think Zadorov would be way more effective consistently if he played that way, but I don't know, does he want to play that way? It's hard to say, and it seems not the way he plays. And the choices he makes and the way he plays defenseman, it seems like he doesn't want to be that guy consistently. And that plays into it. Like, I hope it's going to be a little bit of a different story when they get to the playoffs. He'll be a little more disciplined when it comes to that stuff. And to your point, maybe he and Lindholm will both be better in year 2. We'll see. I don't know. But for this year that we're talking about right now, they are both definitely different than I thought they were going to be. Lindholm, I think, is more of a liability than Zadorov is consistently. Like, I think Zadorov has his moments. But I think there's going to be a lot of questions about both of them with Don Sweeney in the front office and how they didn't live up to expectations after all the money got spent and what they saw versus what they actually got. I think there's going to be a lot of introspective questions about that stuff. Now, the Brad Marchand thing, like, I understand the accountability part. I understand, everybody's got to get treated the same way and sending that team first message. And, your captain better be playing exactly how you want everybody to play and setting the example and leading by example and all that stuff. But as a coach, you also take a risk when you're doing that, right? You take a risk when you do that and it doesn't work out, that it makes you look, it makes people question your decision making when you lose and when you take out your best overtime weapon in franchise history and one of the best in the NHL history and don't utilize it, and then you lose a game and the other team hops over you into a playoff spot. And I think, Joe Sacco had to do that, I'm sure, based on what he saw, based on any details. And is it defensive zone coverage with Marchand? Is it him cheating too much offensively at times? And maybe that was the issue too. It could be a combination of all those things that maybe he wanted to get his attention, like, hey, you can't do that right now in this game. And that's fine. But I think once you start doing that stuff, especially when you're an interim head coach, you're also like putting your neck out there when it doesn't work out and when you lose the game and when you take one of your weapons off the board willingly instead of because you had to. And I don't know. I'm really mixed about that decision, about the results, about how that all went down, about that game. Like I just maybe it's a turning point. I thought they played better against San Jose, but they were still trailing and needed to come back in the third period. So it wasn't like they were lights out great. And I just wonder what the sort of overall reaction is going to be as they continue to play games here, whether there's going to be a big response or whether this is, that was something that, I don't know, maybe didn't spark the team or rally the team like maybe he thought it was going to. Bottom line, Mick, I think it's a very high risk move to obviously bench your captain in overtime, like especially
such a clutch performer.
His
legacy in his career is that he's in the 99th percentile of the guys that the highest quality of his career is. This is when any team would love to have him, just because. And he's a big moment player. And if I have to think, I have to speculate here that even if it comes in small increments, there's a point at which you feel like I'm choosing here between losing the game or losing my team.
Right, or making a point, right.
And at what point do you do that when a desperate season like this? Losing your team can never be the choice. And I don't want to think that Sacco is coaching for his career either. I think that just for this season, you can't lose the team. The whole thing could go south.
Right.
So whatever was said ahead of time to put him in a position where he had to act, then he had to act. And the guy's been pretty laid back in general. So that's a big deal.
It is a big deal, and I think it's something to continue to watch moving forward. I just think you need to tread lightly when it comes to the captain of the team and it comes to a respected guy like that that's one of the icon franchise players here, that's like you're starting to tread on tough ground at that point.
Well, yeah. I mean, hey, if Jake DeBrusk can win over Bruce Cassidy, then Brad Marchand can win over Joe Sacco.
Right. So, I just, I don't know. I think, I just think whatever you're getting for short-term gains out of a team with a very limited ceiling right here in this season, you need to be careful about the way you're treating a Hall of Fame level player, and the way it's going this
we
year.
can
And I
only
think
hope that those conversations, right?
yeah, but I just think that's something to keep in mind. You know what I mean? Like that's something you always have to kind of be aware of is there's legacies here. There's long-term histories here. There's, all kinds of stuff going on. And I think Marchand, to his credit, has always been a guy that will take hard coaching, will take all that stuff, will, not take it personally, and will move on. And will always be accountable about it. And
the
I think
Monty
that's
situation earlier in the year.
Yeah, I think that's one of the great things about him. And that's I think the more important example that he sets than anything else is just being accountable and being, somebody that will always answer the bell and will also always, admit wrongdoing or admit faults or places where there could be improvements or whatever. But when your leader is that way, you kind of have to be that way too. And I certainly hope everybody else in that locker room is exactly that same way. All right. Kostelic on the IR again, Mick. That's not insignificant. Hopefully it's not related to the previous injury that he had. He was not out in the third period against San Jose, but that's a big loss. And for a guy like him, he plays so hard, he plays so physical, you wonder if he's always going to be, every season he's going to be a little banged up or he's going to be missing time at points just because of the way he plays. He might be that kind of a player.
Maybe we're finally starting to see why Ottawa let him go.
Well, I mean, maybe a little, but I think there was more to it than that. I think from my sense, talking to people in Ottawa, he didn't play consistently in Ottawa the way he's playing in Boston this year, with the same energy, physicality. He wasn't like that all the time there, like they wanted him to be. And I actually think he's played really well here.
He's been unbelievable. It's been He's been the bright light of this season. He really has. I mean, when I think about all the things that have gone poorly for the Bruins this year, that acquisition in the Elmark trade has been the highlight of the year for me. He has really been worth watching every shift.
Yep, no doubt. I agree. I just think he's what you're getting from him. He's been a leader from an energy perspective, from a physicality perspective. He's been one of those players that will drag the team into the fight. I think he is. He basically forced the Bruins to sign him to that 3-year extension by the way he played. They had to. Just watching him play and watching how good he had been and how the example that he sets for everybody else and how well he plays to sort of the identity or what they want the identity of the team to be.
They got to be giddy over the number too.
Yeah. So but the other side of that coin, like I mentioned, there's going to be injuries when you play that way. There just is. So he's banged up. Patrick Brown and Max Jones up from Providence. Jones, from all accounts, has been playing better lately. 8 goals and 11 points in Providence, and has been playing sort of the fast, physical game that the Bruins envisioned for him. And maybe this is a chance, Mick, for him to carve out something for himself in the second half of the year. And we saw Jesper Boquist kind of do this last year, right, where he had some chances early, didn't take advantage of them, and then came on like a house of fire in the second half and got a permanent role with the team the second half of the year. And Jones is that kind of a guy where he's got the talent and, could play right into the physical fast forecheck style that the Bruins want to play if he has everything going now like he didn't in the first half of the year.
He was supposed to be the guy after Kostelic who is most assuredly going to be on the NHL roster and playing this fourth line role for them, maybe up depending on how it went. That preseason was the general outlook. And it didn't start off well for him because, like a lot of players, he had an asterisk of a camp with an injury. And it just it's been a hard season down there. Another guy that did not get the call, who hasn't had the season that Max Jones has had, is Duran. And the former Providence College player. I saw him play a game down in Providence not that long ago, and he was playing that game, that straight line, big speed on the forecheck, keep it simple and go hard. And I thought that wow, there's yet another player who could fit the mold of this group. He didn't come in the same way or the same timing, but this is a guy who fits into that mold in that group. Another maybe interchangeable part of those four-checking wings on the fourth line. Max Jones is certainly somebody they've been wanting to get a look at in Boston all season long, and now he's finally playing at a level where they feel like they can plug him in and take a look. Brown, a career minor leaguer who is the captain of that team for a reason. He is always a guy who is going to play, as hard a game as you can hope anybody's going to play. He, plain and simple, doesn't have NHL speed. If he did, he'd be a career NHLer because he does everything else by the book. So, so these are good reinforcements. Their fourth line should be decent.
It should be, and I think their top two lines. If Poitras and Marchand and Coyle can have found something, consistently get going, and they have two lines that can score, because Geeky and Pastrnak and Zacha, I think, have been excellent for weeks now, like very, very good.
Oh, and by the way, Pasta, early in the game, Celebrini open in the slot, Pasta shut him down, a great back check.
Yep.
First period.
And Pasternak's playing good hockey right now.
Pasta's on right now.
Yep. And it all goes back to a few weeks ago when I think he was, the questions started arising, like what's going on with Pastrnak, because the numbers were way off what they usually are. And he's gone on a massive heater since then. And I think that whole line has played very, very well. So maybe that's indicative that he's going to be able to play like that for the second half, which would be a huge development also for the Bruins. And allow them to score a little bit more. Let's take another quick break in the action to talk about our friends at Game Time. If you're looking for any kind of tickets, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time for obviously your Bruins tickets, but also if you're looking for tickets to the Celtics or maybe even comedy or concert tickets or the theater. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The game of the week for this week that would make an outstanding post-holiday buy is Thursday, January 23rd, showdown between the Bruins and the Senators at the Garden, the rematch of that game last weekend that the Bruins wasted and frittered a point on the road in Ottawa. So this is going to be another playoff-style game. It should be nasty. It should be very hard fought by both teams, so you're going to want to get to this one. The super deal for that game is $144 for Loge 21 seats, which is pretty great value for Bruins tickets in this new year. Some features at Game Time. Priority Game Time picks. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, comedy, concerts, theater, etc. All in pricing. Toggle this feature and shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. And my favorite, the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it, Mick?
What time is it, Hazel? It's game time.
Game time. Thanks, Hazel. All right. All right, we're going to get to this one, Mick. Actually, you know what? Forget the tweet question. We're going to just talk JT Miller in this last segment. Somebody you like, somebody you think the Bruins should go after. There's talk the Islanders, the Hurricanes are in the mix. It seems very clear he's going to be the guy that's dealt from Vancouver. I saw some interesting video of a game recently where it looked like Pettersson and one of the other young Vancouver forwards were sitting on the bench, and they were kind of mocking JT Miller's intensity and how pissed he was when he came off the ice slamming his stick. and like, I mean, JT Miller's obviously a fiery guy. He's got a temper, like he rubs some people the wrong way, but I think that's also a bad look by these young forwards.
Can we trust it?
What's that?
Can we trust it that this isn't AI or anything? This really happened?
I don't think it was AI. It looked like it happened to me.
Okay.
But like, I don't, even if it did like that, that's the kind of dynamic I think is at play here. I think there's two different styles that are going on here. And as much as like JT Miller can rub people the wrong way, I think that's not a great look for the young Vancouver players either. If they're all like, "Oh, what's this guy so mad about?" He's like, and like poking fun at him, like, "Oh, like that's cool, like whatever," and they're just going out and playing and not really playing with a lot of fire or anything. And that's just, I mean, I know you got to pick one over the other, but I don't know that that's a great sign for Elias Pettersson that he's picking a fight with a guy that's been an extremely respected competitor in the NHL for a long time now.
You got to assume JT Miller's gone at this deadline.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And definitely. The question is where's he going? And
he wants to come east, supposedly, too.
Well, there was a story out there that the Rangers offered up Zibanejad, and that the Canucks said not enough. So it's going to take something special because this guy's stock has risen. He was just it's funny. He's like, what is he, like 31 or so? When he was a younger player, but already kind of getting into his athletic prime, he didn't have anywhere near this much cachet, but his reputation has built up these last few seasons because he's such a prick out there. And I remember teams him are like salivating for this guy.
Remember when he knocked out David Backes when he played for the Lightning?
Yeah.
Like way back when?
Yes. Yep. That was the 2018 series.
Yep. So, like, he's been on the radar for a long time. He really kind of found his offensive range in New York with the Rangers. But I think he's been a very noticeable player, I think, for a long time, whether it was Tampa when he was there. And
like good player. But now he seems like he's got like top level trade value. Whereas before it'd be kind of like, he'd be a good guy to get. Now it's like everybody wants this guy. What are we going to do to get him? What's it going to take? It's like it's officially a blockbuster for whoever gets this guy. They're going to have to send something serious.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think Mason Lowry would probably have to be part of what Vancouver would be asking for. I think you'd obviously have to send a forward out there.
They said no to Zibanejad. Doesn't the conversation have to start at a higher level?
Yeah, well, it would probably be Coyle, right? He would probably be going to Vancouver. It would probably be Lowry, and it would have to be a first-round pick. That seems to be what the rate is a defenseman, a forward, or a center to replace Miller and a first-rounder. Maybe it would be less for the Bruins. I'm not sure, but
I don't think that'd get it done.
No,
I think because there's competition out there. Teams will go a little. Teams will push. Whoever gets it's going to overpay a little. It's a little like free agency.
Yeah, I don't know. Would you think he would be a good fit with the Bruins? That's the question.
You know what? I don't care. I think the Bruins are kind of like, as Mike Milbury said back in 100 years ago when he was on ESPN, and there was a debate about whether the Blackhawks should. Barry Melrose was arguing on the panel that, well, maybe the Blackhawks are playing so well without Jeremy Roenick, and he's such a game changer for them. Maybe they should just play out this next couple of games without him. And Milbury says, chemistry, schmemistry, get him in there. And so you got one guy's thinking about team chemistry, another guy's thinking about just how good is this guy? Get him out there. Let's see what happens. And I think right now, I think the Bruins are definitely a chemistry, schmemistry team. I think right now this is about who cares if there's an adverse effect? What else could go wrong?
Yeah.
If you like the guy long term and you say that if you're convinced that JT Miller can help you put this team back together next year, then the only question is whether or not you're willing to live without the individuals it would take to get him.
Right. Yeah, and who it would take.
And I'm going to take a wild guess that I'd have to take a real good look at Vancouver's roster, but I think they're pretty good on right side defense, so I don't think they're going to be asking for Charlie McAvoy. But
I don't think they're doing that.
No, they're not doing that, and that's the thing. That's why I kind of don't see the Bruins as being this team, the team that's going to do this.
No, maybe Carlo. But is that a guy that Vancouver would want?
Well, if you got to look at them and see what do they need, what do they want, what are they designing to get here. I would
suspect in a deal like that they would want. And it seems like they'd want a center that can replace Miller in the lineup. They would want a young defenseman, and they would want a good draft pick or an A prospect.
And thusly a Coyle Lowry pick scenario.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem becomes, you're right. Like, would that be a competitive enough offer to get it done? Probably not. It's too bad you can't
trade Zadorov.
No, I was going to say
that's the only problem. The only players the Bruins would love to give him are the ones they already had.
Send Lindholm back to Vancouver.
Yeah.
Eat half of his money and send him back to Vancouver. If they could get him for $4 million a year cap hit, they might want to do that.
Yeah, this is not coming up roses for the Bruins.
No, definitely not. All right. We solved all the problems for another week for the Boston Bruins.
Yeah,
Mick, thank you very much for joining us. Let's also thank our sponsors here, Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Let's also thank the folks at Game Time. If you need any kind of tickets whatsoever, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it, Mick?
What time is it, Hazel? Game time.
Game time. Mick, thank you very much, my friend.
My pleasure, Joe. Have a good one.
Everybody else out there, you have a good one too, and we'll see you at the rink.